A wise man once told me, desperate times call for desperate measures. Week 2, here we come. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 89th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Wednesday edition of the pod, which means we're going to open up the floor to you guys a little bit later on in the show for social media maneuvers. Get your questions ready. If you're out there, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if it is pertinent. Also, if you want to jump to the front of the line, you know how to do it. Use the super chat feature to have your comment read before everyone else's. But if not, just use the hashtag LouieTLive. Read your comments, get to as many of them as we can. Not going to guarantee that we get to all of them. If there are a bunch of them, if they're not, we'll just move on to garbage time. Got a lot to talk about tonight on the show. But before I get to any football stuff, got to talk NBA real quick. Was shocked that the Clippers weren't able to get it done in Game 7 versus the Denver Nuggets. And, you know, I'm going to tell you a quick story. One of my best friends, massive NBA fan, and we were talking shop right before the NBA playoffs got underway because he was upset. He's a Phoenix Suns fan, and obviously Phoenix undefeated in the bubble on the restart. Felt like they should have gotten a chance to play, but you know, I told him I'm a Grizzlies fan, so obviously we were vying two teams for one spot essentially, and they missed out. And I told him, you don't deserve to go because you didn't do enough in the regular season before COVID hit. We did. So that was the basketball gods making sure at least we got a taste of what it felt like to play in the postseason, even though it was one game. But that's nor here nor there. I brought that up because he said before the playoffs got started, the Denver Nuggets are going to win the whole thing. And I said, man, I'm about to hang up on you. That's my exact words were, man, I'm about to hang up on you. Get off my phone talking that nonsense. And he said, I'm serious. They're going to win it. And the first thing I thought of when they were down 3-1 to the Utah Jazz, this clown says they were going to win the NBA championship. And then it was 3-2, then it was 3-3. And then we were on the phone at the end of Game 7 when Conley almost made that desperation 3. And the Nuggets held on. And I was like, they made it to the second round. But I said, you know, this ends now. They play the Clippers. There's no way they're beating the Clippers. He's like, yeah, you're probably right. But I think they're going to win the whole thing. So we'll see. He said, I just love the brand of ball that they play, and I think it's very favorable for them in this bubble environment. No road games. This is a team that can score a bunch of points. They got elite players at just about every position you can think of. They got a guy that can score. They got Jokic as a big. We see Michael Porter Jr. is developing into an NBA megastar. Like, he's got the talent. He probably is one of those guys that's going to eventually find his own team and, you know, become a star of his own squad. He's that good if he can stay healthy. But they were down 3-1 to the Clippers, and I'm thinking to myself, this clown said they were going to the NBA Finals, whatever. Then it was 3-2. Then it was 3-3. And I'm like, are they really about to do this? Are they really going to crash the party? Everybody's been waiting on Clippers, Lakers. Are they really about to do this? They did it last night, and they did it emphatically. Wow. That was impressive. I don't think they're going to beat the Lakers, but I didn't think they were going to beat the Clippers, and I didn't think they were going to beat the Jazz. So I don't really know. It's weird because I look at the Eastern Conference Finals, and I'm like, Boston and Miami, like, do either one of these teams feel like a team that could beat anybody out west? I don't know, man. I've been talking about Miami for a very long time. Like, they've got talent everywhere, and they're so balanced. Similar to the Raptors team we saw last year, even though they had a megastar in Kawhi Leonard, the Heat don't have that. The Celtics don't have that. You know, both teams have really good basketball players, though. A bunch of them. I just don't know if they got enough to beat anybody out west, but we'll see. Anyway, I digress. That's enough NBA talk for one day. Let's get to the gem dropping session, shall we? Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, I got to thinking. For the first time in a long time, my boys aren't 0-1, going into week 2 with a desperate mentality of, man, we got to have this when nobody wants to fall to 0-2 on the season. So I'm looking at the schedule this week as I was putting it together for winners and losers and my Soul Survivor and my weekly pick'em pool, which you can access the weekly pick'em pool via the website. It's down in the description of this and every video that I do. Go down to LTN exclusives, LouieTeeNetwork.net. Go to LTN exclusives. You can be a part of the weekly pick'em pool. I had somebody hit me up telling me, oh yeah, I went 13-3 this week. You did? Prove it. Don't tell me you went 13-3. Show me you went 13-3 and win some money in the process. You know, I felt so good about my 13-3 last week. We're going to talk about that on Friday. And then I still didn't win the damn weekly pick'em pool. I was pissed because goddamn Steven Gostkowski can't make a damn kick. He makes his 3 field goals and 1 extra point. I win the football pool because it came down to points. But instead, he misses all those damn kicks. The final total of the game came out to 30. Somebody had 33. You gotta be kidding me. Anyway, I said all of that to say this. If you think you got what it takes, prove it. Don't tell me you went 13-3. Don't tell me you went 12-4. Show me, okay? Get in the pool. Get in the weekly pick'em pool. Prove it. All right, put your money where your mouth is. All right, I do it every week. Anyhow, I digress. My team's not 0-1 this year for the first time in a long time. So I got to sit back and look at the schedule and feel good to be able to say, man, don't have to have this one. I want it bad. You know, I want every game bad, but I don't have to have it to avoid 0-2. And so there are a lot of teams, though, as I looked at the schedule, squaring off that are 0-1. And this one is big because, again, 0-2, it's not a death sentence, but it's the closest thing to one in an NFL season. You fall to 0-2 on the season, you're treading on thin ice, my man. I mean, your team is really on the cusp of seeing their situation, their season spiral out of control. It's hard to rebound from 0-2. It's not impossible. We've seen it done before many a times. I always reference the 07 Giants. They started out 0-2. They looked terrible. They looked like they couldn't stop a wet paper bag, and they end up winning the entire thing. They won the whole Super Bowl. All right, and so we've seen it happen before. I want to say the Chiefs one year, not the Chiefs, the Lions, I think one year, one of these teams, I want to say it was the Lions, I think they fired their coach. Somebody fired their coach after getting their ass whooped over in London. They ended up, you know, winning a bunch of games. I don't think they made it to the postseason. I got my teams all mixed up. Somebody started off like 0-4, 0-5, got hot and made it to the postseason. I really feel like that happened. I could be imagining things. I really feel like that happened like 2-3 years ago. Anyway, I digress. Bottom line is, we've got 5 0-1 teams squaring off against each other. 5 games featuring 0-1 teams squaring off. So 10 teams total, 0-1 squaring off against one another. And I think total for the season, we've got obviously 16 0-1 teams, but those teams are playing against other teams that won. So for all intents and purposes, somebody's O won't go, okay? Someone's O will go, someone's O won't go. And it's the O that won't go that's going to have you in a tough spot, all right? Because, matter of fact, I'm lying. Everybody's O's got to go, you know, because you're going to get either a win or you're going to stay winless. So someone's O won't go. I said that right the first time. Someone's O won't go. And that's going to be very problematic for their season moving forward. So I want to talk about these games real quick. I'm not going to get into the details of these games. We'll do that on Friday. But Cincinnati, Cleveland starts us off this week, Thursday Night Football. That should be fun. Joe Burrow was fun. Now, that game was not fun, okay? That game was a chore for 3 quarters. It got spicy at the end, though. That's going to be fun because Cleveland, here we are again talking about the Browns, how much talent they have, and how Baker Mayfield's going to do this and do that. I'm getting to the point now. I'm like, hey, Bake, you need to either prove it or get the hell out of the way. I'm starting to think Baker might be trash. I'm not willing to do that because I know the guy has talent. And I saw it with my own 2 eyes. I know this guy is capable, but there aren't but so many more times I can watch him go out, get his ass whooped, not hold up his end of the bargain, although the run game is extraordinary, all this talent around you, and somehow you're not able to get it done. At some point, I got to place the blame at the quarterback position. So I'm going to give him a chance this is a great opportunity to get off the schneid right here. You're at home versus Cincinnati. There's a young team trying to figure it out. If you can't beat Cincinnati at home, what does that say about you if you're the Cleveland Browns? That should be a fun one, though. You know, the last two Heisman Trophy, or 2 out of the last 3 Heisman Trophy winners are in this football game. So that one should be a lot of fun. Atlanta at Dallas, to me, is the marquee matchup of 0-1 teams this upcoming weekend, because for all intents and purposes, I had these 2 teams being playoff teams. I haven't changed my mind yet, even though Atlanta was really disappointing in their loss because I expected the defense to be better. It's Russell Wilson, so I cut him a little bit of slack. Take it with a grain of salt. They're not elite enough to stop Russell Wilson when he's playing like that. When he's playing that way, you're not going to really be able to stop him. So I'm not going to kill the Atlanta Falcons defense for giving up 38 and almost allowing Russell Wilson to complete 100% of his passes. But Matt Ryan threw for 450. Like, I don't think most people realize Matt Ryan had himself a day, but, you know, some of it was in garbage time. Some of it was, I like Russell Gage had 100 yards receiving. When you watch the game, I'm like, Russell Gage had 100 yards receiving. What? But Matt Ryan is still playing at a relatively high level. I thought Todd Gurley was good early in that game. He kind of faded late. This is a big game because I don't know if either of these teams are winning their division. I can tell you right now, Atlanta's not winning theirs. Dallas could not win their division. Remember, 7 teams are getting in each conference. So I'm looking at wild card and I'm saying this could, like I said with Dallas in week 1 against the Rams. The Rams aren't going to win their division more likely than not. So you're essentially looking at the Rams like, hey, this could be a tiebreaker down the road. I really need this one. And they fell. They can't afford to fall to 0-2, and they can't afford to lose to another NFC team that they may be battling with at the end of the year for a playoff berth if they don't win the NFC East. So not only are you staring at 0-2 potentially, but you're staring at another team in the conference that you can't afford to drop a game to. The same can be said with Atlanta, even though I don't think they're going to be in the same stratosphere as Seattle. Even if Seattle doesn't win their division, Seattle's not going to be meddling around 9-7. You know, Seattle's going to be a double-digit win team. They're going to be 11-5, somewhere, 10-6 at worst, 11-5 more likely than not, 12-4, somewhere in that general vicinity. So I don't think you're going to have a situation with Atlanta where, oh man, we lost to Seattle early in the season. That could cost us. I don't think Seattle's going to be swimming in those same waters with Atlanta. But that's a big game, man. To me, of all the winless teams squaring off against each other, this is the biggest one on the docket. Atlanta at Dallas. A lot of eyeballs will be on that one on Sunday. Carolina at Tampa Bay. We think we know what's going to happen here, but are we sure after watching Tampa Bay in week 1? Are you sure? Because Carolina, I'm telling you, they're going to be competitive all year long. And I told you, they're going to find ways to lose games, but they're also going to win a couple of games that they have no business winning. Teddy Bridgewater is a good quarterback in this league. Christian McCaffrey is as good as it gets at the running back position. They've got enough stuff to be problematic. It's family business. You know how to family do it. I'm just saying, we're going to find out a lot about Tampa Bay, because if they can't beat Carolina at home, it could be a long season for the Buccaneers, because their schedule is not an easy one at all. San Francisco at the Jets. I think the 49ers bounce back here, but they better be careful, because that wasn't a great showing by the 49ers in that ball game. So they need to be careful in this one. But the Jets aren't a good football team. I don't think they're going to have anything to worry about. And then Minnesota at Indianapolis. That's an intriguing game, if I may say so myself, because I was disappointed in Indianapolis, as a lot of people out there were in week 1. But it wasn't a terrible performance. It just wasn't what we were expecting from them out of the gate. As far as Minnesota is concerned, I told you I think they're going to struggle this year. I told you I think they're going to miss the postseason. I told you I don't think they're going to be above 500. I think they're going to be an 8-8 ball club. So what I saw from them in week 1 wasn't that much of a surprise. But they're missing some pieces too. They're missing some guys that are going to be difference makers for them. And they're still kind of putting some of the pieces together. Remember, a lot of guys left this offseason, especially on the defensive side of the football. Hence the 43 points given up. Also, not having Danielle Hunter in the lineup did not help either. So that's 1-0 and desperate. You know what I'm saying? A lot of teams desperate. Somebody's going to get off the schneid, and somebody's going to be left thinking to themselves, what the hell have we gotten ourselves into starting the season off 0-2? And then conversely, you got 4 matchups of 1-0 teams. Somebody's going to be 2-0 at the end of these games here, and really sitting pretty to start off the season. Jacksonville at Tennessee, who saw that as a 1-0 versus 1-0 matchup when the schedule was released. Washington at Arizona, who saw that as a 1-0 versus 1-0 matchup when the schedule was released. I mean, you're talking about both of those teams squaring off against teams that won the division last year. Neither of those teams were supposed to win on Sunday. Both won, and now are 1-0 with a chance to get to 2-0. Kansas City at the Chargers, AFC West family business. This is probably going to be as good as it gets in terms of AFC West family business this year. I think Denver's going to be a 8-8, 9-7 type team this year. And I think the Raiders, I won't sleep on the Raiders. I need to stop doing that to the Raiders. They might actually be a little bit better than people think this year. We're going to get our first look at whether the Chargers are capable of slowing down the Chiefs this year or not. They've done all of these things cosmetically in the offseason to upgrade the team speed, to be able to try to slow down, not stop. Nobody's stopping the Chiefs. You're just looking to slow them down. This is the first opportunity we're going to see. It's a sneak peek. If they can't do it, nobody else in the league is equipped to do it speed-wise, because the Chargers have the most of it on the defensive side of the football. And then New Orleans at the Raiders. Monday Night Football, first game at Reliant Stadium, brand new Vegas digs, should be fun. No Michael Thomas, that's going to be impactful there. We'll see if the Raiders can take advantage of that opportunity that will be coming their way. So with that being said, let's get to social media maneuvers. All right, so I saw a couple of super chats. So we are going to knock those out quickly, and then we will move on to all the comments that are in the comment section. The first super chat up. First and foremost, I want to thank every single one of you for your comments and chopping it up with me on this Wednesday afternoon. If you haven't already done so, smash that like button for the kid. Show a little bit of support. Also, if you haven't checked out Patreon, I just uploaded a couple of videos to Patreon. NFL Peak Performers. There were some really big time performances this week. Also, NFL Rookie Wall. Both of those are exclusive on Patreon. If you're a Washington football team fan, I've done the film for the defense. The offensive film will be uploaded at some point today. And so a lot of exclusive content on Patreon. Make sure you check it out and become a patron if you want additional NFL content. That being said, Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Twin D, who writes, LT, love what you've built. Kawhi's my favorite NBA player, but his legacy takes a bit of a hit with last night's no-show performance. This is the thing about Kawhi, and a lot of people will try to drop this one in Kawhi's lap. Kawhi is doing something right now that has never been done in NBA history. He's been an MVP at 2 different stops, winning championships with 2 different teams. He's looking to make it a third. Now, obviously, LeBron James is trying to beat him in that race, and last night was a chance for him to do that and have a chance to beat LeBron to that really historic feat. But it looks like LeBron's going to have a chance to beat him there. But, you know, Kawhi and what he's done, he's not, I shouldn't say, because he attempted to do it this time, but he's not doing the super team thing, okay? He didn't have that in San Antonio. He didn't have that in Toronto. And remember, he won a championship his first year in Toronto and was looking to do the same in LA with the Clippers. It didn't work out. I don't put this defeat squarely on his shoulders. I look at playoff P. And Paul George and his no-show. And honestly, I want to kill Paul George, but I'm going to continue to give him some time. I just feel like he's a loser. I think Paul George is a loser. And then he talks too much. So, you know, after the loss, he said, yeah, we had already discussed that this wasn't necessarily a win or necessarily a win or else type of season. Like, what are you talking about? Every season should be a win or else type of season. Like, every season should be a win, or I don't know what's going to happen in the offseason type of year. Like, you should be going after it like there's no tomorrow. Not, well, if we don't win it this year, we might win it next year. Like, that's dumb. That's loser talk. But that's Paul George. I mean, he doesn't perform in the postseason well, but other guys have struggled in the postseason, like Kyle Lowry, for instance, struggled in the postseason for years. I'm hoping that he gets his act together because Kawhi needs someone else. In this league, you can't win it by yourself. Like, even in San Antonio, he had a great supporting cast. There weren't a bunch of elite guys. You know, Duncan was past his prime, Parker was on the decline, but it didn't matter. There were still really good players around him, and he turned out to be the star of the group. Danny Green, everybody had roles. They played it well. You go to Toronto, same deal. Danny Green's there. I thought that even though Kyle Lowry had his games, he's fouling out and things of that nature, you still had guys like Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet who stepped up major in those games. He needs that. There isn't another guy. Like, Lou Williams went to sleep. All right. Montrezl Harrell went to sleep. Like, guys went to sleep on Kawhi and forced him to have to try to do it by himself. And that's where you need Paul George to step up, and he didn't. So at the end of the day, I don't think his legacy takes a hit necessarily, but, you know, it's a little bit of a blemish, but I don't think it's something that people are going to hold against him. They'll more look at Paul George before they look at Kawhi Leonard because of his track record. He's done this before. He's won big everywhere he's been, and now you put him next to a guy that kind of shrinks in those big moments, and you saw what happened last night. That's unfortunate that game wasn't even close. Thank you for the super chat, Twin D. Got another super chat from Twin D. Thank you for doubling up. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Twin D. Greatly appreciate you, Twin D, who writes, LT, you moved on from the NBA quickly, LOL. About the NFL, question. Who do you think is likely to ruin their season from an 0-2 start this weekend? And so it's amazing that you brought that up because, and maybe you brought it up after I brought up the gym dropping session. But of these teams here, and don't forget there are other teams that didn't win in week 1. 6 other teams additionally to the 10 that I've mentioned already are playing against teams that did win, like the Eagles, for instance. They're playing the Los Angeles Rams, and the Eagles are at home. But if the Rams go in there and win and the Eagles drop to 0-2, it could get ugly in Philadelphia. Now, the beauty of what could happen if the Eagles do lose is that Washington conceivably could go out to the desert and lose, and the Cowboys could lose to the Falcons. The Giants aren't any good, and you look up and everybody else in the division is right there with you, with the exception of Washington at 1-1, and the division could be trash again like it was last year. And so you don't have to get off to a roaring start. You could get off to conceivably an 0-3 start and have this division still be right there for the taking. If teams get off the schneid like Dallas or even the Giants in their matchup in week 2, or Washington is able to go to Arizona and win and get to 2-0, and you fall to 0-2, if you're Philadelphia, you're in a world of trouble at that point. But you know, when I look at this list, though, I'm gonna just keep it strictly to the teams playing against one another. I think a team that could ill afford to fall to 0-2 is Minnesota. You know, I don't think they're going to be very good this year for their standards. 8-8 isn't a terrible year, but when you've been a playoff participant the last 2 seasons, or at least last year, I think the last 3 out of 4 years the Vikings have been in the playoffs. I don't think they made it year 1 with Kirk. But when you've been in the postseason 3 out of the last 4 years, or however many years it's been, and you were just in the NFC Championship game a mere 3 years ago, it's tough to swallow a bitter pill like 0-2 and looking at your season and thinking that we might not be very good this year. They lose at Indy. That could be a really, really damaging blow to their season because Green Bay is good. You look at Chicago, they won last week. They got a chance to go to 2-0 this week. And you look at the Detroit Lions, they should have beat Chicago last week. They could easily be 1-0 right now. So falling to 0-2 could be really damaging for Minnesota, and it doesn't get any easier for them either, for the Vikings. So that's a big one. Obviously, to me, the team that could ill afford to go to 0-2 on this list more so than anybody else is San Francisco because of just how competitive their division is. They go to 0-2 with some of the injuries that they have, and Dick Sherman was just put on IR, so he's going to miss at least the next 3 weeks or so. if they drop to 0-2 with Arizona being much improved, with the Rams being a good football team, and with Seattle being one of the best teams in the NFC, you drop to 0-2, you're in a world of trouble. You're in an absolute world of trouble because everyone conceivably in their division could be 2-0 after this weekend except them. Because the Rams could go to Philadelphia and win. Arizona could beat Washington on Sunday. And Seattle could take care of the Patriots on Sunday Night Football, and everybody else in the division is 2-0, and you're 0-2. So San Francisco can ill afford to lose. And first of all, you can't lose to the Jets. You want to have a season, you can't lose to the Jets. It's as simple as that. So Tampa Bay would also be in a little bit of trouble, but I think they can bounce back because Atlanta lost, Carolina lost last week. Their division isn't as gaudy record-wise, but we already know the NFC West is going to be extraordinary this season. You can't afford to drop to 0-2, not in the way this division is shaping up. So I think that's the team that I circle and say they can't afford to drop to 0-2, and I don't think they will at the Jets. But we've seen stranger things happen. Thank you for the super chat, Twin D. Anyhow, got a super chat from JP. We talked about the Clippers already. He's a Lakers fan. He also talked about don't ever doubt LeBron and my Lakers again after what they did to Portland and Houston. I'm going to continue to doubt the Lakers, but I don't think there's anybody really left to beat them. We'll see what the Denver Nuggets are all about. But this isn't a great Lakers team. You know, I really feel like they benefited from this situation of COVID and the whole teams not being able to gel and them not having to go through the entire season the way that it would have been, and the grind of the Western Conference weighing on them. They didn't really get the full complement of what it means to be in the Western Conference, but that's no here nor there. I'm not taking anything away from them. They've taken care of their business to this point, and they find themselves really as the favorites now to win the entire thing. Hope Livao, thank you for the comment, who writes, what are your NFL playoff teams? I've already given you those. I don't know if I have them in front of me. Let me check. I may have them around. I did a podcast, though. I want to say it was last week. It was the last Wednesday's podcast where we talked about my division winners and my 7 playoff teams in each conference. I think I got it around here somewhere. Here it is right here. So my playoff teams in the AFC are as follows. I've got the Chiefs winning the AFC West. I've got the Texans winning the AFC South. I've got the Ravens winning the AFC North, and the Bills winning the AFC East. So those are your 4 division winners. Your 3 wild cards are the Chargers, Colts, and Steelers in the AFC. So those are your 7 participants in the AFC. In the NFC, I've got the Seattle Seahawks winning the NFC West. I've got the Packers winning the NFC North. I've got the Saints winning the NFC South, and I've got the Cowboys winning the NFC East. As wild cards, I've got the 49ers, Rams, and the Falcons. So those are your 7 teams in the NFC. So I've talked about that already. We discussed that on the pod. Like I said, I think it was last Wednesday's episode. I want to say it was the 86th episode of the podcast, I believe it was, when I did my predictions for the season. So if you want to really get an in-depth look at how I view the season, check out the 86th episode of the Louie T Network podcast. Got a comment here from Captain Spartan 04 who says, I was hoping my Steelers could trade for an O-lineman, but looking around the league and everyone needs O-line depth, I guess getting Gerald Hawkins back will sadly do reviving the 2016 draft. It's going to be rough because normally this time of the year, there aren't many available quality offensive linemen. As you know, in this league, much like backup quarterbacks, the depth along the offensive line, walking the streets is minimal at best. Teams are always looking for better offensive linemen. They're always looking for depth. So if you're drafting players, if you're developing players, you're more inclined to keep those guys, protect them on your practice squad with the new rules this year that allow you to protect 4 guys. You're more inclined to, instead of cutting the offensive lineman, like for instance, my favorite team, the Washington football team, they elected to go with 10 offensive linemen this year. And they easily could have had just 8 or 9, but they said, no, we got to keep 6 tackles on the football team, and because that's the way this league is set up. You let your guy go, you have an injury or 2, and now you're searching for tackle help and some depth. So we'll see what happens. Donald Penn is still out there. I saw your tackle go down on Monday night. Donald Penn is not a right tackle, but it sure beats what else is available, the alternative, I guess. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call Donald Penn. He might be able to give you some quality snaps at right tackle in a pinch. So it could get ugly out there. And as I mentioned on Monday night, Ben isn't a nimble-footed 38-year-old. He's literally 38. He looks 38. You have to protect Ben, or it could get ugly for the Steelers this year. So that's something that they're going to have to try to fortify, is that offensive line for sure. I got a super chat here, so I'm going to go ahead and take that. And it's from Big Money Sonny. Thank you for the super chat, Big Money Sonny. Greatly appreciate you. Big Money Sonny writes, "Hail to the Washington football team. That is all. That is it." I second that notion. All hail to the Washington football team and that extraordinary defense. And they're all the rage right now. We'll see. I've always said one thing my team doesn't do a good job of, and this is in the past, I think it is in the past, is handling praise, handling expectations. They go out and ball in week 1. Now everybody expects them to, and I think a lot of people understand the challenge that Kyler Murray and the Cardinals present, but we'll see what happens in week number 2. Thank you for that super chat, Big Money Sonny. So I got a comment here from C's Up, who says, "Do you feel like Teddy Bridgewater could be the quarterback of the future for the Panthers, and how do you feel about Matt Rule?" I've stated my case for Matt Rule being an elite coach, 3-4 years down the road. I think he's going to be perfectly fine in Carolina. I think he made a young coach mistake on Sunday that ultimately, you could argue it cost his team the game, but I always like to say that it doesn't come down to one play. I mean, obviously, you lose a game by 2, your kicker misses a field goal, similar to the situation in Cincinnati, where their kicker missed the field goal, could have sent the game to overtime, but he missed. You can point to that one play and say, well, damn, we had a shot, but there were other plays in the game that were missed. Joe Burrow missed 2 deep balls. One at least would have been a touchdown. The other would have probably been a touchdown as well. And those are the types of plays that hurt you as well when you look back at the game. There are plenty of plays that ultimately help decide a game. There are definitely plays that can alter the outcome of a game. But the 4th and inches late in the game, the 4th and 1, 4th and inches, and you decide to give the football to your fullback, and you had done it once in the game and it worked and it was successful. But when the game's on the line, I got to ride my horse. I got to ride my multi-million-dollar running back, and I got to give him the football and assume he's going to find a way to get me 1 yard. And so I think he was trying to outsmart himself. Oh, the Raiders are probably expecting McCaffrey to get it, so we're just going to hand this off to our fullback and let him pick it up, and he got stoned. But Matt Rule will be fine. I've said this already. Everywhere he's been, he's won. It just doesn't happen in year 1. But he's going to be just fine in Carolina. I think they're going to be good in a matter of 2 to 3 years. I look for him to really have that program buzzing in probably 2022. 2021 will be intriguing, because if this team is what I think they're going to be this year in 2020, which is a highly competitive team, but they just won't find ways to win, similar to week 1. That's exactly what I expect from the Panthers for much of this season. As the year progresses, they may find a way to win a game or 2 that is just like this one, close ball game, have a shot late. They may find a way to pull it out as they continue to learn how to grow and win. But I think they're going to struggle this year. But if they play this kind of football where they're in games, they could easily expedite the process, and in 2021, you start using the P word. As far as Teddy Bridgewater is concerned, I absolutely think he could be the long-term fix at the quarterback position. This is an audition for him. They brought in Joe Brady to be the offensive coordinator. It really just goes down and depends on how those two mesh together. If Joe Brady and Teddy Bridgewater makes some beautiful music in 2020, and then they take what they do in 2020 and build upon it in 2021, because Teddy Bridgewater signed a 3-year deal, then you've got to think that because Teddy's still a relatively young man, and he, in terms of football years, there's not a lot of mileage on Teddy Bridgewater. So it's not like you're getting a quarterback that's 32 years old and you're like, man, can we really build around a 32-year-old quarterback? Teddy Bridgewater is still in his 20s, and Teddy Bridgewater doesn't have, even if Teddy's 28, 29, he doesn't have the NFL mileage of a 28, 29-year-old quarterback, you know? So, yeah, you can build around Teddy Bridgewater. It's just about the fit about with him and Joe Brady. If those two mesh together, Teddy Bridgewater could definitely be the quarterback of the future. I thought he did a really good job in week 1 of giving this team a chance. And it's going to be fun to watch this Panthers team evolve over the life of this season. And if Teddy Bridgewater is a part of that process, I think he'll be the long-term solution at the quarterback position. If he's not, and again, I assume that the Panthers are going to be bad this year. If you're Teddy Bridgewater and you want to ensure that they don't draft a quarterback, find a way to win 6 or 7 games this year. That will keep them out of any contention for one of the top 3 passers in this draft. Once you start getting to that next wave of guys, you know, the Jamie Newmans and all of those guys, maybe they'll feel a little bit less they'll feel a little bit more apprehensive about pulling the trigger. You put them in the territory where they can get their hands on, you know, a Trey Lance or one of these guys, the Ohio State quarterback, you know, then they may, it's a hard, long decision you start making when you're like, man, we can get us Trey Lance right here. We really like this kid, you know, or we can get the Ohio State kid. We really like him too. Win 6 or 7 games, put yourself at 15, 16 in the draft, you know, 13 in the draft, and keep you out of that sweepstakes. So we'll see what happens. I think that Teddy Bridgewater ultimately will be the guy in Carolina. I do. I really do. Thank you for that comment. C's up. Got another one from JP who writes, people need to stop hyping up Dallas. Year after year, they're hyped up with all that talent and star power, and they've done absolutely nothing to show. And they've absolutely done nothing and have nothing to show for it for 20 plus years. Hashtag trash. While that is true, when you have talent, you have a chance. And they've got talent, an abundance of talent. And that's why people continue to sing the praises of the Cowboys, even though, as you've mentioned, they have nothing to show for all the talent that they've had over the last 20 years. They've had some really good regular seasons, some years where they've been 14-2 and 13-3. But even those have usually resulted in first round exits or divisional round exits when they would play. I think back to 2007 when they had the best record in the NFC. They lose to the 6-seeded Giants, who ultimately won it all in 2007 in their first playoff game versus them. I think back to 2014, I believe it was, when they had the best record in the NFC, I think again, and they lose to the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers was magnificent. That might have even been 2016. I think they had a good record in 14 though as well, but I remember 2016 as the year that they were really good and Aaron Rodgers cut their heart out, and they were getting their asses whooped, and Dak brought them back, and then Aaron Rodgers ripped their hearts out with that throw to Jared Cook on the sidelines. Not a lot there to show for it, but the talent is undeniable, and that's why people continue to think that at some point that talent's going to break through. And so I think this is a year that they could still win a division. You know, it's only one game. They've got a ton of talent. CeeDee Lamb looks to be the truth. We know that Amari Cooper's a good receiver. We know that Michael Gallup is a stud in the making. Ezekiel Elliott looks to be in midseason form after 1 week of football. They've got talent, man. They've got injuries. Sean Lee, what's new? He's injured again. Leighton Vander Esch, I already told you, he may ultimately have to retire early. I mean, you can't keep having issues with your neck. Now we're having broken spines and things of that nature. I just don't know how much longer he's going to be able to do this, but he's hurt again. But when it's all said and done, they've got enough firepower to get it done. And I think this week is going to be key and pivotal for them in terms of the 2020 season. Can't afford to drop to 0-2. Got a comment here from J Money. J Money writes, my Cowboys definitely can't afford to drop to 0-2 because we have the red hot Russell Wilson and Seattle Seahawks in week 3. So we might be 0-3 if we can't beat the Falcons. Shaking my head. Exactly my point is that you can't afford to drop to 0-2 with what's on the horizon. Again, this division may not be the greatest. We saw this last year. We've seen it with the NFC East when it's been the NFC least in the past. Excuse me. You can get away with a 9-7 division winner or an 8-7-1 division winner or whatever the case may be. We've seen this division be less than stellar in terms of the division winner record-wise, but you don't want to put yourself in that position. You don't want to find yourself behind the 8 ball. You don't know what everybody else is going to do. And I always tell fans of the Washington football team this. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Take care of your own, man. Take care of your own, you heard? Take care of your own business first. Yeah, it's okay to be nosy. They're family members. I like to be in their business as well, okay? However, if I don't take care of my business first, the family business becomes irrelevant, all right? And, you'll get those fans, oh, I don't care what we do this season. As long as we beat the Cowboys twice, I'm fine. That's bullshit, okay? That's bullshit. I don't want to be 2-14, but 2 wins over the Cowboys. Spare me. All right, I want to win as many games as possible, and I want to include Dallas, New York, and Philadelphia in that mix as well. When we start stacking up those dubs in the left-hand column, I'd like those teams to be included in those dubs in the left-hand column as well. But you got to take care of your business first. Take care of home first, and then you can be nosy and start wondering, well, what the hell are the Eagles over there doing? What about the Giants? What are the Cowboys up to over there against the Falcons? Yeah, you can be nosy. Take care of yours first, because if you don't take care of what you got to take care of, what those other teams are doing is irrelevant unless they're stinking it up too. But you don't want to put yourself in a position where you got to rely on other people. I've always been told, a wise woman once told me, you want something done right, you better do it yourself. Don't rely on other people and other teams to have to do your dirty work for you. Take care of business. If you're Dallas, you got a massive game at home this week versus Atlanta. They're desperate just like you are. They can't afford to fall to 0-2. Their coach almost got fired last year. Their general manager almost got fired last year. To start 0-2, you're going to start to see that seat get a little hot. They don't want to have all of that turmoil bubbling. They need a win just like you need a win. Your coach came under fire for the decision making that he had in week 1. Nothing more would be easy. Nothing would be better than to ease some of that tension than to go out and win in week 2. But as you mentioned, week 3 is a daunting task against Russell Wilson and company. You want to get this one so you don't put yourself in a position where you could be staring 0-3 down the gun barrel. Thank you for that comment, Jay Money. Got another comment, this one from John Perez, who writes, in my opinion, the Browns made the dumbest mistake not keeping Greg Williams as their head coach. They actually had fight in them every single game. Obviously, they wanted to build around Baker Mayfield, and that may prove to be the wrong decision if he doesn't turn out to be any good. But their thought process, and that, I told you, this is a copycat league. Everybody tries to mimic the successful teams in the league. The Rams at the time were the hot commodity, and Sean McVay was what everyone was aspiring to attain. And so they saw Jared Goff, they saw Sean McVay and what he was able to do for Jared Goff. Remember, everybody thought Jared Goff was hot garbage. When Sean McVay took the job that first year under Jeff Fisher, Jared Goff looked like he was absolutely horrid. And then Sean McVay takes over. They marry those two together. It's been a beautiful marriage ever since. And so everybody was looking for that. Get the young, hot, up-and-coming coordinator to marry with a young quarterback, and you hope that you develop and build a Drew Brees, Sean Payton type of relationship between quarterback and coach. And they tried to do it with with Freddie Kitchens and Baker Mayfield because they were doing so well with one another, with Kitchens being his quarterback's coach. That failed miserably. They go out and get Kevin Stefanski, think he's the next hot thing as an offensive coordinator. They get off to a slow start in week 1. It's early, not going to start throwing darts or, looking to chop anybody's head off. I don't have the pitchfork and torch right now, but I'm telling you right now, there's only so much as a Browns fan, if you're out there, that you can take of this with all the talent that you have. I talked about the running back position. They're loaded at running back. I talked about receiver. They've got receivers and tight ends for days now. Najoku got hurt again, but even with Najoku getting hurt, they still got two potential stud tight ends. One that's proven himself in this league in Austin Hooper. Another one in the FAU product that they drafted this year in the 3rd round. So they've got a bunch of talent, man. There's no shortage of talent. Baker Mayfield's got to start producing. They've got to start scoring some points. They've got to be more competitive. It needs to start this week at home versus Cincinnati. So we'll see what happens. Greg Williams isn't a head coach still, so we'll see what happens with that. I too thought they should have kept Greg Williams. You know how I felt about that, but a lot of teams aren't hiring defensive coaches. They're hiring offensive-minded coaches, especially if they have a young quarterback like the Browns do. Got another comment here from Captain Spartan 04, who writes, where can I submit the pick'ems? I'm feeling a little hot this week. If you're looking to get into the weekly pick'em pool, remember it's $7 to get in. Also, you can do it down in the description of this video. Like I said, you'll find the website LouieTeeNetwork.net. Click on the link, or you can just type in LouieTeeNetwork.net. Not hard to remember, and go to the LTN exclusives tab, where you will find all of the exclusives. Obviously, the winners and losers league is closed. So is the Soul Survivor pool, but the weekly pick'em pool will be open every single week for the entire season. You can play, and you can play as many sheets as you like. So if you're feeling lucky, you put in 2 sheets. If you really feel good about yourself, you put in your number 1 sheet, and then if you got a couple of games you're waffling on, you switch them up on that second sheet, and you go after it that way. But weekly pick'em pool on the Louie T Network website, LTN exclusives tab, and you'll find it all the way at the bottom of that LTN exclusives page. It'll say, make picks for week 2. Click on that button and have at it. So looking forward to you and anybody else that's interested to jump in. And man, I'm still disappointed. I can't believe I didn't win last week. 3 of us had 3 losses on what was an extraordinary week for me picking games. The one I regret, the one I felt like I let get away, was Arizona. I sat here on Friday and told you guys, man, I feel like Arizona's going to be good this year, and I feel like they can make a statement week 1. And I said, I don't know if I'm ready to make that statement in week 1, but I knew they were capable, and I should have done it. I didn't pull the trigger. That would have been the difference maker there, because I felt like going out on the limb with the Atlanta game, I felt like Seattle was a better team, but I just thought Atlanta was going to come out with some juice at home and get it done, and I was wrong. I was willing to take that loss. The one that stung was Arizona. Thought I could have pulled that one off if I would have had the balls to make the pick. I didn't. I had to pay for that one. And so there it is. But that's how you can become a part of weekly pick'em pool, is simply go down to the website LouieTeeNetwork.net. Again, it's down in the description, LouieTeeNetwork.net, and click on the exclusives tab, LTN exclusives, and click on the button make picks for week 2, and you can get in. Make sure you do it for the right one. It's all the way at the bottom. It says weekly pick'em pool, not winners and losers. Make sure you are able to differentiate between the two. It's the very bottom one, the one all the way at the bottom of that LTN exclusives page. All right. And so with that, I think that's the last comment that I have, and it is. So we will now digress to garbage time. And, with garbage time this week, I want to talk about some injuries. And I said we were going to have a Matthew Stafford debate, and I went back and forth as to whether I wanted to do that in garbage time. I think I want to do that on the gym dropping session. I really want to have a Matthew Stafford discussion on this podcast at some point. I want to let this season play out a little bit more before I make any definitive statements. But at some point, we're going to have a Matthew Stafford discussion on this podcast, because there are some people that think he's a Hall of Famer. His numbers suggest that he's a Hall of Famer. We'll talk about that at a later date and time. I want to talk about injuries today as we wrap up this show. Injuries are going to play a major part, as they always do in an NFL season. Von Miller was officially put on IR. He's done for the season. No one thought he was coming back from the ankle injury that he sustained right before the start of the season, but he's officially on IR. That's going to hurt that Denver Broncos team. You could see last night they needed somebody to step up and make a play late in that ball game. They don't have a guy. Bradley Chubb is good. He's not Von Miller. They're going to miss Von Miller this year. It's going to impact them. And I think Miller is good for at least 1, possibly 2 wins, saving a game at the end, like last night or Monday night was a perfect example of that. But you look around the league, I talked about Dallas and some of the injuries that they've sustained already. Blake Jarwin, their tight end, done for the season. I really like Blake Jarwin. He was going to be a big part of their offense this year. And they don't have another guy. The Schultz guy, Dalton Schultz from Stanford, not going to cut it. So they're going to struggle at the tight end position, I believe, now with the loss of Blake Jarwin. That's a big one there. Leighton Vander Esch, he's another Sean Lee to me, another guy that just won't be able to stay healthy. I liken him to Dat Wynn. If you're a Cowboys fan, you remember him. He retired early. I think you're going to have another early retiree here eventually with Leighton Vander Esch. I hope that's not the case. I hope he's able to come back, stay healthy. He's a damn good football player, but when you start talking about the neck, I get a little concerned. I don't know what his future holds. He's going to be out for a considerable amount of time, is Leighton Vander Esch. So is Sean Lee. He just had surgery, so Sean Lee always hurt. What's new? So the Cowboys are a little thin at the linebacker position, and they're going to be without their tight end, Blake Jarwin, this season as well. 49ers, as I mentioned earlier, they're dealing with a slew of injuries. Couple of receivers are already out. They're hoping to get Deebo Samuel back here shortly, but now Dick Sherman has been put on IR with an injury, and that just happened out of nowhere. No one really knew he was that banged up. So that's another loss. Remember, George Kittle also got hurt in that loss to Arizona. He had a knee injury. That's going to be something to keep an eye on. We talk about the Jets and how we don't think the Jets are very good and that the 49ers should take care of business. These injuries are starting to pile up for the 49ers. And if they are not able to navigate and circumvent some of these injuries, they could very well go to New York or New Jersey and lose on Sunday. But George Kittle, don't know the extent of that injury, but I know he had a knee injury in that ball game. We'll see what the extent of that is. As it's Wednesday, injury reports are being released. We'll see how some of these players fare throughout the course of the week. Talked about a big injury in New Orleans to Michael Thomas. And here's the thing. In past years, this would have been a death blow to this offense. Because they have Emmanuel Sanders, they got E-Man saying they may be able to stay above water. They may be able to stay afloat with E-Man saying he's going to have to play much better than he did in his Saints debut, because for about 3 quarters, he was invisible. However, Michael Thomas is the heart and soul of that Saints passing attack. And so you take him out of the mix. Remember, this is a guy that caught 149 balls last season. I mean, he was targeted like something like 175 times. So their offense, in terms of the passing game, runs through Michael Thomas. If he's gone for anything more than a couple of weeks, I don't know their schedule and who they have in the next coming weeks other than the Vegas Raiders on Monday night. And that's no pushover there. They could be in a little bit of trouble. Michael Thomas is a huge part. I don't have to explain to any of you out there just how big of a part of their offense he is. He's going to be out for at least the next week, possibly 2, maybe even more. We'll see what happens with him. As you continue to look around the league, AJ Boye hurt himself in Denver. He was going to be a big-time offseason addition and acquisition for them at the cornerback position. Remember, they lost Chris Harris Jr. to the Chargers in the offseason, so he was supposed to be a guy that was versatile, that could move around, do some things. He hurt his shoulder in the game on Monday night, and he's going to be out for an extensive period of time. So the injuries for Denver starting to mount. I talked about the Steelers earlier with my man Captain Spartan, who's a massive Steelers fan, and they got some injuries along that offensive line. James Conner is banged up, but I think they'll be just fine without James Conner, to be honest. Me and Captain had a conversation about James Conner on Monday night and how he's like, I'm almost ready to move on from him. I think the Steelers aren't going to really be all that hurt by Connor being out. I think Benny Snell, if he's healthy, he's going to be just fine for them at the running back position. Where they need to make sure they stay relatively healthy is on the offensive line. They were already banged up coming into Monday night's game. They lost another player at the tackle position. It could get really dicey for the Steelers if they cannot stay healthy along the offensive line. So injuries are starting to mount around the league. The Chargers, I just talked about how athletically gifted they are on the defensive side of football and how they took a blow to their defense before the season even started with Derwin James going down. Well, another blow was dealt to their defense as their athletically gifted linebacker, Drew Tranquill, the second-year man out of Notre Dame, broke his ankle on Sunday. He's done for the season, more likely than not. And so the hits just keep coming for the Los Angeles Chargers. It's almost as if they just can't catch a break out there. And so the defense takes another hit as they lose a very big piece of their defense in linebacker Drew Tranquill. So I talked about David Najoku as well. He's banged up. Again, what's new with him? That's been the story of his brief NFL career to this point, is he can't seem to string together 8 straight weeks of healthy, very productive football. There'll be 2 or 3 weeks where he reminds you that, yeah, I was a first-round pick, and then he gets injured, and then you fall asleep behind the wheel, and you forget that he's even on the Browns roster. They've got so many guys at the tight end position that they're probably in their mind thinking, we need to trade David Najoku. I thought that they could have gotten something for him this offseason. They liked him. They still do, but the injuries are just becoming too much to bear with David Najoku. It's always something, it feels like, with him in Cleveland. So a lot of injuries. They're starting to mount, as they often do as this season gets underway. We'll continue to monitor them. The Eagles had a bunch of injuries on top of the injuries that they already had. Brandon Graham sustained a concussion in the game versus Washington on Sunday. Their backup tackle, who was in because their starting tackle was out, Jack Driscoll, who's a third-round pick, I believe, out of Auburn in this year's draft, he has sustained an injury. Don't know the severity of that, but that's not great news for them. He did not return to that game versus Washington, so that's something to keep your eye on there. But the Eagles are a team that desperately need this one in week 2. They should be getting back Miles Sanders and wide receiver. I believe they should be getting Lane Johnson back as well. Their tackle, Lane Johnson, Miles Sanders, the running back, and they may get Alshon Jeffrey. Never, ever trust a man with 2 first names back this week. So, again, a lot of injuries around the National Football League. We'll talk more about some of those potentially on Friday and how they'll impact my money picks of the week. The kid went 13-3. You're going to hear about that again on Friday. Don't worry. I'll tell you at least 15 more times, and looking to do it again. You know, there's only one thing that's better than going 13-3. That's going 14-2 or 15-1 or 16-0. So I'm only looking to go up from where I started in week 1. But that's going to do it for your man, Louie T. I got a comment here on the way out. Darnell Magruder says, you're crazy if you think the Jets are going to beat San Francisco. I didn't say they were going to beat San Francisco. Okay? Clean out your ears. Wash your face. Get your mind right. I didn't say they were going to beat the 49ers. I just said the 49ers have some injuries, and if they don't play better, they can get got. Anybody can get got on any given Sunday. We know that to be a fact. I'm not saying that the Jets are going to beat them. I don't anticipate that happens, but injuries do alter games. Don't you forget that. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on the 89th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me as always. Been a lot of fun. Looking forward to chopping it up with you guys on Friday again. Looking forward to chopping it up with you guys tonight. If you're a Washington football team fan, we'll be live for Washington Football Nightly, 8:30 tonight. Looking forward to doing that with you guys. Also, we'll be live tomorrow for Thursday Night Football Overtime. AFC North family business, Browns and Bengals. That's some Ohio on Ohio crime right there. That should be tons of fun because those are two desperate teams at 0-1, as we discussed earlier in the program. So a lot of content coming your way, in addition to all of the other things that are going on Patreon and whatnot. So guys, if you haven't checked out Patreon, a lot of content over there. Become a patron and make sure you don't miss out on all of this great content coming from the Louie T Network. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to Louie T Network if you haven't already done so. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Make sure you're shopping the merch at the Louie T Network store. Make sure you check out the links down below. You can either shop via the site, LouieTeeNetwork.net, or you can shop via the print champs. Both of those links are down in the description of this video. So go ahead, get you some merch, support the kid. Hats and things of that nature are coming soon. A lot of you have asked about that. Hell, I asked about getting some hats. So those are coming down the pipeline, and you'll definitely know as soon as those become available. So with that being said, I'm going to glide to the side, allow you guys to enjoy the rest of your evenings, and we will reconvene on Friday here on the Louie T Network podcast. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not, I repeat, not the best NFL coverage it could be. Until next time, you guys take care. Have a good one. Louie T.